All right, sup traders. We are here, and this is my position. I made a video this morning of my positioning before FOMC. This is a limit order that I set when price was moving up here. It's running a little more than 2 hours right now, so I can for sure de-risk it if I want. And there's an argument to be made for closing it. I'm My bias is to try to hold it to all-time highs, new all-time highs, and try to add on. We've talked about this. I've talked about this a lot, but let's just go over it. If we look at market structure, we made a higher high, a higher low, a lower high, a lower low, a lower high, a lower low, a lower high, a lower low, a lower high, and it looks like we're possibly making a higher high. It looks like a possible higher low, and if we hit 65 and we're at 62, we're made a higher high. And my experience is for such a long consolidation, if we break out, it will happen quickly. I think about these when once we started moving, we left the bottom in a week. Or this one where it happened, yeah, in 1 week, like 30% in a week, right? 25% in a week. Or this one, I mean, it's just something that happens. 46% in a week. This one went 25% in a week. Or it could be like this, maybe 30%. It doesn't have to happen, but that's something that I've been talking about and I've been eyeing for months. And I like the idea of trying to participate in that. We are under the 200 EMA. Um, there's reasons to be cautious, though, that we'll look at. Now, another reason that I'm favoring a breakout is because of how the funding situation, and I'll really zoom out on this. Let me try to, maybe I'll put it on 12 hours so we can get a lot of price history. This doesn't always work, but typically when we have persistent negative funding, we didn't have extreme negative funding, but we've had persistent negative funding. That marks a bottom. It happened here in August before a significant move up, August of last year. Similarly, we saw the move in that month. We started to see it move up in September and it broke out in October. Same time, persistent negative funding from the FTX bottom. We did see persistent funding and the decline in January, February, March 2022, and price broke down. So it's not 100%. I think this market is very different though. There was significantly more institutional leverage in this time period in 2022 from Celsius, BlockFi, FTX, Three Arrows Capital, even MicroStrategy was a greater risk then. And there were no passive institutional inflows. Where now we have potentially passive institutional inflows of what? Of the ETF, and there's not nearly as much institutional leverage in the system. I mean, in theory, there's greater open interest, and that's true, but there's also greater shorts. Now we are seeing locally, so this is my only concern locally, funding is quite elevated. Although if we look, funding is not nearly as high as it was at the top, or even when this move up started. So it's a danger, and that's something that I'm going to keep in mind and look at, but it's not the only thing to consider here. So another thing we're looking at is spot CVD. We can see that the price was able to start moving up despite spot CVD going down. Once spot CVD and market buyers in January started buying it up from January to March, that's when we had our most ridiculous, fastest price increase, right? At the same time, we're seeing perp sell, sell, sell. And since the top in March, we've had decreasing buy pressure, increasing sell pressure at the market on Bitcoin. But what has happened is, at least since this bottom, price CVD is flatlined, so it's not making a lower low. And locally, if we go locally here, it is turning up. So That's something to consider, but do we want to take profit and look to reposition lower or just let this ride? This is the question here. So first off, a place on the chart. This is for sure a place that price could reject from. It's a large fair value gap. My idea is that it's possible price would just run through this gap, but it's also possible it's just going to reject this gap too. Don't really know. But we'll take a look. It might be a safe thing to get out here, right? It might be safe. So we look at Bitcoin, we look at ETH. ETH is showing possibly a sell, just in that we came above this and are rejecting. And I want to look at um, the funding on ETH as well. I mean, this certainly looks like something that would just could reverse from just volatility, but at the same time, higher high, higher high, but not a major deviation. So in theory, price could make a higher low, but maybe retrace. Let's keep that in mind for a moment. Okay, we're back. That's something we're gonna need to look at ETH, and also if we look at total 3, others. I mean, okay, others look sketchy because we have a weekly swing failure into a daily fair value gap. So let's look at SUI. This thing is ripped. I don't know. Yeah, I could look for possible shorts on the alt space. I don't know. Um, that might be worth looking at. That would allow me to maybe hedge my Bitcoin, which I kind of want to keep open. So, spoiler is like I'm interested in keeping my Bitcoin and trying to carry it to new highs with the risk of round tripping it and coming back later. It's true that funding has gotten hot, but also spot is coming in, has been buying, and I have this idea that price has a great chance of just continuing to new highs. So I want to try to hold for that. Um, so considering that though, if we look at, I'm not going to look at ETH right now. ETH's maybe one I could short. Maybe we'll look at ETH. We're seeing the market overall is really hot. So um, if I don't TP Bitcoin, I should definitely be looking at shorting something possibly. That said, I cannot market order. It needs to be a limit order. So if we look at ETH, we see open interest went from 7.4 to 7.7. I don't really think I can sell here though, because even though the funding has gotten positive, with a spot driven rally is kind of sketchy for me to want to be a seller on. If we get an hour fair value gap, maybe I'll need to take action, but let's see what's up the most today. CKB, Popcat, and then maybe one of those is tradable. This looks very toppy, and it also filled this. Let's look. CKB has been super hot for a long time. Still negative, so if the funding is so negative, I'm a little less comfortable, but it's been coming down. Spot's still buying, so I'd rather leave this one alone. Might work, but I'd rather leave it alone. Popcat. Kind of holding a breakout. It doesn't have a 1 hour gap. So this one is a definite no, but I'm just curious on what it looks like. It's like an insane breakout though. Funding is quite positive actually, so yeah, that's all leverage. Doesn't mean I can trade it though. It looks strong, right? On the chart, it's not really shortable. Let's see what else there is out there. Celestia, Phantom. Cannot trade this one either. Phantom. This may be interesting. Did Ave make it back to the high? Phantom? This isn't the one. Ten. I want to see everything lined up on one of these to fire a shot. Okay, I love how hot funding is. I need to see also CBD, a divergence. No, which we don't have, so I'm gonna leave it alone. What do I need to see? I need to see spot selling, but spot's buying. Sui, we already looked at. Beam. Well, they try to find ones that have the best chart setup. It's not this one. I want to see something that already TP'd. But look, total threes. Others dominance. We're having our alts rip right now. Yeah, if anything, I want to think about. Okay, put my stop back at the low of this day. And then have a limit order somewhere in here. So here's what I'm interested in. We're not going to short alts right now. So on the daily, let's try to find the right area to limit order potentially. It would be on the 1 hour. So we have this large area on the 1 hour. Now, another reason that I think this could hold is because if we go to a lower time frame, it was just a steady move up. It wasn't super inefficient. The inefficient ones are more likely to just reverse. Like this was really inefficient, pulled back. Let's find another one. This was super inefficient, came back. This is a pretty efficient move up, actually. The inefficiency came out here. So if we look at the 1 hour, I'm looking for something this to try throw them under. Stop like this. From here to here would be what? Put it right at, we could maybe put it right at this candle actually. Would be $1,500. So I'm okay with that. It doesn't look like the place to be shorting anything. Okay, I'm gonna cancel this order. My max is so do 59,000. No. I'm gonna put my limit. So I'm saying that this whole gap is likely to survive. Might not, might or might not. $61,100. I'm not going to close. I could close and try to re-enter. Yo, some of these alts are just absolutely mooning. I don't want to close because that could cause me to not be in the move and also would cause me a lot of psychological damage, which isn't necessary. So I'll throw the max on. So 61,100. And I'll put my stop at 59,500. Which is what? So I would risk 1,000 on that. However, I'm gonna walk up my stop on this. To 0. And I'll be like, okay, if it doesn't fill, I'll be okay with that. And if it does fill, maybe I'm happy. And if it stops me out, then yeah, I took a loss, but we also have this broken trend line. Shorts have been right for so long that it's like they're gonna be wrong at some point. And what's it gonna look like when they're wrong? On the other hand, ETH, the thing about ETH though, for me to want for it to be sell is I'd want to see it create a fair value gap. And I would also I would have wanted to see spot selling off. Like the funding is super high. There's a lot of longs, it's true. But with spot buying, they hardly bought though. They bought from this move though, like this move, massive increase in open interest, massive increase in longs. So it's pretty dangerous. It makes me like the idea of taking the profit, but it just saves 800 bucks if I do that. And then I risk not even being in it. And I think not being in it is a pretty big risk. The funding rate is out of control though, so I really need to think about that. Being cautious. I wouldn't say it's out of control, it's high, but it was as high as it was here. I mean, it's not crazy high. It's could be much higher, right? It's lower during the average of this whole grind up. I feel like, yo, the Japanese stock market's flying up. 50. Yeah, I really want to. Getting out of my winter really fucked me up down here because I ended up buying in here, in here, getting stopped out, not catching this move, and then getting scalp scratched up in here a little bit. So I think I'm gonna hold knowing, yo, funding is super fucking high. I know that. So it's pretty, part of it's greed for sure. Some of these guys are absolutely fucking mooning. Be the high, but it's again, I really want to do it when the market is giving signals. And we're not really hitting any major TPs. Um, so I don't really, I mean, the alts that I've tried to look at, I haven't seen anything that's an interesting short in terms of having it all together. The only thing is the high funding. Okay, that's kind of interesting. Open interest coming up. Doge, but even then, yeah, this doesn't look right either. Like stop at the low of the day. What did I put it? 61,100. Yeah, we'll leave it. We've had enough negative funding for long enough. Okay, that's it. Happy trading.